What is up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new recap, review, and breakdown of Moon Knight, Episode 2. Hello, guys. How's it going? Steven here. I really enjoyed this episode. To kind of just jump right to the cut, I felt like it expanded a lot more on the first one. The action at the end, in particular, with Moon Knight really jumping over rooftops just shows you how cool this character can really be. And just so much more, like delving into a little bit more of Steven, the whole personality situation that, you know, as much as he's learning it, the audience is learning it. I just feel like it's also really well shot. So let's get into this. And right at the beginning, you know, we're more or less just picking up kind of where we left off. He wakes up, and again, I kind of like the detail that Marc puts into. It's almost like he's trying to still make it seem to Steven like there might not be too much wrong. Maybe he's still just hoping that Steven will put it to bed, as we do know Marc rather kind of keep Steven out of this, if you think about it. And what I'm talking about is he was still, you know, attached with the ankle to the bed, so he, you know, slammed his face into the floor. But now he's kind of just back to work, but he's still, I think this time it's really stuck with him. That kind of trauma he experienced as Steven before he let Marc take over isn't like what he's been through before. Normally, yeah, Marc might take over, and he's feeling like he gets hit by a bus in the morning, as he said at the beginning of the last episode, but now, yeah, there's a bit more evidence and food for thought as to what is really going on here. So he goes to the security guard, since he was saying, yeah, there's like damage everywhere, and this is really setting in stone now, like, oh god, you know, I really might be in some trouble here. And once again, I keep kind of feeling sorry for him. Just as he's somewhat preparing the security guard, say, look, what you're about to see will blow your mind. You can't capture the jackals on the security recording. Just like Layla later, she couldn't see them either. Technically, I think when she did bash or something, you could kind of see something like it, which is kind of strange. So is it like a supernatural thing where people who aren't avatars can't see them, or if they have paint on them or something, they can be seen? I don't know that. I feel like they didn't make that extremely clear, because at first I just thought it was a thing that people can't see. But I do remember one particular moment. I can't remember exactly how the damage made the jackal a teeny bit visible, but it seemed to, you know, at least to other people when that said action was done. Steven is then brought to the office. I think some of his colleagues by now and that boss person was picking up that he might have some mental struggles, and even offers him help, but at the same time takes his badge. So Steven now is kind of just, you know, talking to the statue guy again. I know I keep repeating this here, but I kind of feel bad for him because he's still just really trying to figure out what the living heck is going on with him. There's such sincerity there that Oscar Isaac manages to bring across in his performance, which is what makes Steven such an interesting character to me. It's not just like, oh yes, I'm going to play this really noobly, but it kind of gives you a peek into, and this is what a lot of people are saying. Truly imagine if you, and some people might be able to imagine this through experiencing it, I'm not sure, but if, at least in my mind, if I was to experience anything, like a modicum of anything like this, where you black out and then you don't know where you've been, or you might be waking up holding this can here, and it's just like, I don't remember doing that, that must be a terrifying revelation to go through. So that kind of anguish and kind of stress that he goes through, yet still delivering it in that kind of kind-hearted, newbie way, Steven, you know, laters, gators, and things like that. It's just like, you know, oh, Steven, man. And that's another thing, whilst I keep doing those impressions, last episode we spoke about the accent. I think I have firmly landed on, you know, being British myself. At the end of the day, the British accent's a weird thing. People up north, you might have the Scotland accent, or a Birmingham kind of thing, or you can have like a very Cockney London accent, like Michael Caine kind of thing. But you can have that Oliver Twisty kind of, please sir, can I have some more? Or that kind of Steven has here. It's a weird thing. So I don't necessarily agree with people saying that Oscar Isaac, and this isn't everyone by the way, I've just seen some people say that's a bad accent. I don't think that's the case. I think it's his demeanor, his noobiness, you know, his voice, the way Steven is, mixed with an accent that people do have. Like, a lot of people I've noticed, you know, Oscar Isaac has paid attention here, and I'm going to try not do an accent breakdown all episode long, but it might be interesting to people either way. But he has paid attention because a lot of British people say nothing or something, like as if there is a K at the end of something or anything. It's like anything. It's kind of a pet peeve that irritates me. Like, I have friends who even do it. Anything, nothing, something. It's just like, that's not a thing. But if you live in Britain, you wouldn't be blamed whatsoever if that's something a part of your regular speech. If you just go, nothing, something, you know, bruv, kind of thing. So I think it's cool. And if anything, it makes Steven paired with his kind of very innocent, well-intentioned demeanor and personality, that much more endearing to me. Swiftly moving through this part, he goes to the locker storage place. That made me laugh. The guy knew he was number 43, but he goes there and he sees the whole kind of mercenary Marc Spector getup, right? And I was thinking, like, call this a nitpick, but I could be wrong here. I might not know anything about this, but I'm pretty sure if you get like a key to open the locker, storage locker, right? And cool, he has like a whole mercenary military style setup in there. There's a little cot there with a pillow on it, so it, you know, it's safe to assume that he has been sleeping there, especially as Marc does say to Steven, hey, yeah, go to that cot and sleep there, have a little nap, and I'll take over. But like, it's basically setting up that he slept there before, but I'm pretty sure that guy who opened it, it's just like, really? Like, I don't think you can sleep in a storage locker. I don't know, nitpick, I guess, but it just seems to say that he has before, and that guy, whoever opened it, wouldn't come and check back and try and get the keys. Oh, wait, there's a dude sleeping in here? I don't know. He opens the bag, finds a gun in there, but he finds the scarab. And I don't know if I felt like it was natural enough, because it did seem like when he touched it, he was like, oh my god. But then he went like this, kind of like that, and that activated. I feel like he should have just, you know, been holding it and then it happened. But I just felt like, again, another nitpick. He just went like that. And it's like he knew to activate it. Sure, someone might argue saying, oh, he kind of did. Marc might know how to do that. But no, again, it's a little nitpick. It's not a big deal. I found this really cool still. And as I was, you know, to expand upon my theory of last episode, not that I'm taking a lot of pride in this theory. I felt like it was a fairly obvious one. But let me know if you agreed with me and you thought the same thing. That scarab was indeed a locator, because I was saying Arthur probably desperately wanted it because it would lead to bring about to fruition the plan that Armmit had to bring the new heaven on earth situation. So lo and behold, it is kind of a compass that will lead you to Armmit's tomb, which, you know, will allow Arthur to resurrect her. That's the grand plan here. This episode actually really did tackle a lot. This is when Marc and Steven have a little bit of kind of, not really a debate, but, you know, Steven's stressing out. When Marc says you weren't supposed to see any of this, I need you to listen to me very carefully, all that stuff mixed in with the stuff at the end. Stick around for a little theory I have at the end of the video. Again, this might be something intuitively that I think a lot of people will be coming to the conclusion of, but I have a little theory on, you know, Marc saying things like, you know, you'll never have to see me again. I just feel like Marc, with some of the words he uses and the other bits and pieces, lead me to one conclusion as to what might be revealed in one episode soon. I don't think it'll be a huge reveal, but yeah, I'm going to stop wasting enough time teasing that because we'll get to it later. This is where it is confirmed, Steven. I mean, we all kind of knew this anyway, obviously, but it's spoken a bit more out loud. This is some of the dialogue in moments like this. I'm not saying it's bad, but sometimes you do get things explicitly said to kind of get what I like to say, some of the Gen Pop normie audience be like, okay, people who just don't know anything about anything, fair enough. Like, okay, right, this is this. And they do a little bit of it later on, like with Arthur and what he explains. But he says, here, I serve Khonshu, I'm his avatar, which means you are too, sort of. We protect the vulnerable and deliver Khonshu's justice to those who hurt them. And then obviously this is crazy to Steven because he finds, you know, serving the Egyptian god of the moon the stupidest thing that he's ever heard of. But he soon bites those words because when he leaves and he's going to take all the stuff to the police to just turn himself in and he'll get help if it means getting Marc out of his head, Khonshu arrives and is just like, yeah, completely scaring the crap out of him. Again, like, I'm not saying like this is the most cinematic, off-the-charts cinematography I've seen, but I want to praise it because I'm not saying every Marvel or MCU thing is badly shot or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but like I do feel like they've taken the extra care to make a lot of these shots really cool in this episode. There's a bit more artistry behind it, whether like that's what we pointed out last episode, to show a bit more of the duality between Marc and Steven there with certain shots like the puddle and things like that. And you can see that just rhythm, you know, echoed throughout this episode as well. Even that frame right at the end when Khonshu is terrifying him, they like paused it, and it just reminded me of a graphic novel frame because the frame did literally pause for like 2 or 3 seconds, which was pretty cool. Nothing mind-blowing, but sometimes simple techniques like that can just serve as something, you know? Now, this is when he bumps into Layla, almost gets run over, poor Steven in his little panic. I do think it is a teeny tiny bit contrived. I only say that even knowing that the phone was being tracked, it's just still, like, even with the phone being tracked, she is always intending to find her husband, right? You know, she's always planning on getting there. It's just what I'm arguing is contrived. Whether you agree with this or not is just the fact that, oh, it's convenient that she happens to run into him there and then, you know, when he's just kind of running out kind of thing. I get why they do it, you know, it's to facilitate the pacing and like, right, okay, from there to there. Oh, wait, what? You know, let's get on your scooter. You're Layla? Oh, wait, what? You're my wife? But you see what I'm trying to say. The sequence there isn't as organic as it could have been. Maybe he could have gone back to his apartment, got a knock, and then it's just like, who are you? But that's sacrificed for more of the, oh, okay, let's keep the pacing up. Which, you know, at the same time, a lot of people don't care about and would prefer that. The only issue I had with Layla, or just the way they handled this episode, is like, I totally get what they were doing at the beginning. You know, at the end of the day, this woman knows her husband. It's like, Mark, like, I know you, so, you know, drop the accent. Like, what is this? Like, I'm pretty sure nobody's going to be following you. Just drop this act. To get to my point, when we get to the flat and she's just like, so this is your flat, Mark, and, you know, there's other little bits and pieces that are going on. I felt like it went on a little bit too long to where she just wouldn't question his mentality. What I'm trying to articulate is that she kept persisting with the whole drop this, oh fine, keep up the accent then. Well, I feel like at the end of the day, you would just be like, at this point, okay, are you okay? Like, what's going on here? It was very clear to me, and before anyone says it, like, this isn't real, this isn't reality, it's a freaking movie, it's a freaking show kind of excuse. That's not an excuse. Getting to this point and where it's just like, I'm not buying this, Mark, use whatever accent you want, let's just get this over with, and how he's not remembering this, that, and the other. It just took a while to get her to the point of where she's like, so you really don't remember our adventures. You don't remember our life together. I just felt like that would have come a little bit sooner. But it did ultimately still come at the end of that scene. And that was obviously after she got the scarab. And I'm glad that she did kind of throw him out the way and get to that. Because Mark obviously warned her. He loves her still. He cares about her. I bet, you know, if you read through the subtext here, that he doesn't probably even want this divorce. And probably only arranging that to keep her out of danger because of his servitude to being the avatar of Khonshu. But again, call me a sucker or whatever, but like when Steven's just like, I would never divorce you, you know, it's just like, oh, bless you, man. Like he's just such a good guy. And this speaks larger to that kind of theory I have later, because Mark is very patient with Steven, as if they have kind of known each other for a while, despite Steven not really being aware other than just being suspicious since episode 1 or before episode 1 of what's going on with me. You know, I think, to kind of tease a little bit later, that Mark really has been aware of Steven for longer than Steven has been aware of Mark, but he's been protecting him and wants to protect him this whole time. Obviously, I think the split personality thing existed before the deal with Khonshu to become the Avatar, hence the dialogue later of Khonshu saying to Mark, you know, you said this wouldn't be a problem and stuff like that. I just have this kind of soft, sad feeling that Mark wants to kind of put this to bed so he can let Steven live on his life, or live his life, and he will reserve his. And I feel like he's been protecting him for a lot longer than what Steven is aware of, and I'm wondering if they're going to capitalize upon that in future episodes. I could be way off there. This is where the police arrive, and they kind of frame it in such a way where you're not sure if it's anything to do with the museum, yet you already know that they're not going to press charges, so it's a bit dodgy straight off the bat, but he knows at the same time that he's got Arthur's people somewhat coming for him, so they take him, and we're given a bit of that obvious, well, it's not obvious to everyone explanation. This is what I mean earlier by the explanations that are given for the sake of just really educating the audience on the character's background from the source material to an extent of that of how they've got themselves an international fugitive, Marc Spector, part of a team of mercenaries that hit a dig site in Egypt. Here's what they did to the archaeologists. Now, this does give Steven a certain perspective on Mark. Like, he's kind of, you know, I saw what you did to those people. And Mark says in the car before we get that part with Arthur that it's not what you think. Now, obviously, it's probably going to mean that I highly doubt that Marc Spector killed those people execution style. It'll probably be a situation that they died and he ended up dying there as well, but he got the offer to be resurrected in offer for his servitude to be Moon Knight and, you know, be Khonshu's avatar. It'll be that whole situation where we probably feel a little bit of empathy for Mark and what he's been through, to be honest. And again, if you add on top of that, he's going to facilitate Steven to live his life, then you might really feel bad for Mark, because he could have had a life with his wife Layla and things like that, but he's let that slide. But that is when Arthur tried to do the whole dark side approach, getting him on his side, his perspective. It didn't quite work though, I'm glad, but it was showing him his perspective, and I'm glad that they spent the time to do this, because obviously we knew and could gather quite a bit of what Arthur's plan was. Okay, face value, stop everyone doing something evil before they do it. Kind of makes sense, right? Like, quite literally, if you know for a divine fact that that certain person in the war was going to do what he did, as Arthur pointed out, then you could have stopped that from happening. In one way, it does sound interesting, but I always sense that, okay, when this is applied to everyone, like that old lady, or what Stephen points out with children later on, like, is it a guaranteed outcome though? Is it a little bit dodgy? Is it ethical? Should you not give people to have some kind of aspect of free will, even if you don't believe in that? There's still probability, if you know what I mean, with how that still might not fully be the outcome, even if you believe that the forces of physics are already set in stone. This is getting way too philosophical right now. This is where the seeds are planted, where Arthur's like, so what's he saying? What's Khonshu saying? You hear him right now? That's a privilege I no longer have. And I feel like from that very line, even if you were surprised when you found out that he was the previous avatar before Marc/Stephen, I feel like from that very line, it kinda gave it away. Like, if it's a privilege you no longer have, that means you would have heard Khonshu, which would have meant you were the former avatar. I also feel like I sussed out the kind of motive. At least I hope there is a little bit more to it, because I felt like they offered everything on the plate already at this point. So it's like, oh, okay, so if you were a tool of vengeance for Khonshu, and now you're doing this thing for Armmit where you want to create heaven on earth, it just feels like black and white. Okay, you just really want to serve the utmost possible way of vengeance, or preserving any kind of goodness in the world, or preventing evil, and that, so you've gone from one extreme to the next extreme, one Egyptian god to the other Egyptian god, who's now doing this slightly more unethical version of things, because as we mentioned, that's a bit up for debate. As Stephen mentioned, it's like, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of crossed the line at, children. But this is where Arthur does share some things that are possibly up in the air at the moment. Like, you could argue maybe there is a bit of truth to it, because he says, Mark, was Khonshu promised you that this is your last mission, then you'll be free? Trust me when I tell you that Khonshu is a liar. And with what we got out of Khonshu this episode, he does seem to have he had a bit of, not maniacal laughter, but there was an aspect of diabolical to his grand plan almost, with what he was saying a little bit later on. And it does make you think, like, okay, I knew what this was at the moment of this time before it was revealed later, because just if you know about Moon Knight, you'll know that he did die, and that's how, like, his origin kind of began with him then becoming Moon Knight. So I knew that was probably the gist, oh, you bring me back to life, I'll do this kind of thing. Now, this leads to Layla coming in, and my only issue with this part, like, trust me, I want to do nothing but praise this, because I'm still really enjoying it overall, but my only argument was that, okay, fair enough, she was being badass to some guys as they were escaping up the, like, stair pod, and there was a bit of an Indiana Jones stunt there. I appreciate all of that, but in that moment where, like, she was surrounded by the cult members, there was some henchmen there as well, and it's just like, why aren't you all just swarming her? This is the one thing you want. Granted, there might be a comment saying to me right now, but, Mark could have taken over, and he could have suited up. But in this moment, they were very clearly showing that Stephen was panicking. He couldn't, so Mark quite literally couldn't, and as advertised later on and articulated by Mark, that the person who's in control of the body, something's changed, they seem to be stronger. So you can't just take it over like you could in episode 1 in the middle of the car chase. So I think you can understand my argument here is, or just my, constructive criticism is, a bit contrived, because simply everyone could have just, jumped on him, but like, give me the scarab, give me the scarab. Kind of like episode 1 when you had the whole village just grabbing it off him. Yet they managed to let her get up the stairs, and I don't know, like, if you want that scarab, my dude, just go and get it. They're right there. We have Stephen, who's not going to suit up. Layla can't take on, like, 25 people there. So, but we had Stephen panicking. This is even when we had Layla call him Stephen. So at this point, she's obviously definitely accepted that there's something up there. The only thing I'm wondering about is, with my whole speculation of, is Mark, trying to protect Stephen, and maybe he's been protecting them his whole life, depending on how long he's had the DID situation. But then how did he hide that from Layla when they were together? because I feel like they've made it pretty clear that he has had it before the resurrection. So I don't know though. Like, this is where things are still up in the air, and I do like, again, there's a little bit of, you know, mystery behind the scenes, even if it's not obvious. There's still subtle mysteries if you ask other questions. But eventually, as Steven fell out the window, he did indeed get into the suit mode, but as Steven. Now, this surprised me. This was a pleasant surprise, because I think a lot of people were saying that when we actually had the suited up, like as in the kind of actual blazer suit version of Moon Knight in the show before the show came out, that people thought that was the Khonshu version, even though we saw the bony Khonshu, that would be more of like the humanoid Khonshu. But no. We actually have the bony Khonshu, we have the Moon Knight Marc Spector, but then we also have the Steven personality, and he has his own suit from Khonshu as well, if you know what I mean. That still gives him super strength. We saw him bend like the bonnet of a car, or like take the bumper off it. And I love this moment because, again, as quite a fan of the endearing character that is Steven, when he got to the point of where he was kind of boosting his own confidence up, because he obviously felt a little bit of the supernatural power that he had within him to have strength and things. When he was just like, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, my name is Steven with the V. I mean, a bit newbie, but to me, only Oscar Isaac Steven could sell that to me. My only criticism here, as much as I was still enjoying this, is that it felt like the Jackal, they advertised him as like, they will tear you up at any moment, and that's why Steven was running so much in the last episode, and just in time, you know, I mean, look at the speed that he was taken over in that moment, just as he was turning into Moon Knight in episode 1. But in this episode, you just had moments where the Jackal was just like, every now and again, it's like he was toying with his prey, in terms of just like, yeah, let's bat her away, Layla, or bat, you know, Steven away. Granted that maybe you could argue he couldn't be torn up because he was in the power mode, the suit mode, you could say. But I did feel like at this end of the episode, you had that Jackal just taking his sweet ass time, batting her away here. It's like slap, slap, slap. It's like, why aren't you tearing her apart? Again, I know that wouldn't happen anyway, but the way they went about it just made it seem like this is a very patient Jackal, not tearing people up at this part when he could do. Why is that? And so we got that Moon Knight moment, and it was obviously a taster of some things to come, but it was awesome. I absolutely loved the crescent darts. The suit looked awesome. I felt like it looked pretty damn cool. The mood of it all, again, the score in this moment was in full force. It was just a cool Moon Knight costumed moment, flying over rooftops. It's as if you would make Batman supernatural, like without using a grapple hook, jumping over rooftops. It was awesome. The moon reflection in the water, it was all there. And I think, this is all needless to say, I bet you guys love this. Now, as we've briefly got into earlier, this is the moment where Steven gets even more answers from Marc, saying, now once I've repaid my debt of, you know, getting life back again, you will never have to see me again. And I just I keep reading into that, because it's like, why though? If you're like the original personality, you had a wife, you were brought back, why will you never see him again? That's the one thing I want to focus on, and for you guys to focus on. Maybe my theory, again, to kind of further expand upon what I teased earlier, because maybe Marc feels like he had his life, if you think about it. Like, he died, like when he was with Layla going into that tomb, the archaeologist died, he died. He maybe feels like, let's just assume he already had his personality of Steven there as well. It wasn't fair of him to doing what he did as a mercenary, to let Steven die as well. So when he's paid back his debt, well, who should get a chance to live their life when Marc was in control, had lost his life previously? Well, I guess that would divert over to Steven. So maybe at the end of this, it seems like Marc is being selfish, this, that, and the other, the way that Steven sees him. But what if he's doing all this to be the Avatar, because he keeps saying, I promise you, you will never have to see me again. What if it's, you know, sadly and sweetly, it's so Steven can then have his stab at living his life, since he has the priority now, because once more, Marc died, losing both their lives when he was in control. Maybe, you know, he cares about putting the goldfish back in the tank for Steven. He cares about maybe trying to get him a date. Like, he still wants his life to carry on, even though he's earning and trying to do all this for Khonshu so he can have a life, because he not wasted his, but got himself killed and Steven killed. So I'm going to stop rambling there before I keep going around in circles, but let me know what you think of that theory. I feel some of the dialogue is very, very interesting when you read into that. This part as well, Marc also reveals to Steven, as if he's already been sensing it, or whatever Khonshu has previously teased, that, you know, he wants her as my replacement. I'm never going to let that happen, you hear me? And then, like, later we have Khonshu reveal to him, let me remind you, should we part, you might not like my next candidate. But I was just like, what if Layla was like, no? Or can he force that onto someone? Maybe he can, actually. I didn't consider that, because I was thinking, what if she could just be like, no? Even though maybe she likes the action as well, she could arguably say yes, but maybe Khonshu can force his avatar or host onto someone, which is interesting. That is interesting. I didn't consider that. Let me know what you think there. But either way, this is the dialogue of when he says, you swore he would not interfere. Now, that deal would have been established at the beginning when he was resurrected. So that's what tells me he had the personality all along of Steven, which is why he probably carries that guilt of the death and keeps saying, Steven, you will never hear from me again, I swear. Like, after I get this, you know, I have to just, you know, fulfill the debt, though, so you can live. But again, with the teasers of Khonshu, when he says, you think you own this body, and then he cackles and cackles away. It's a very, I'm a god and you're like a little pitiful human situation, you know? One of those kind of tales. But also, if you just look at the end game of this, obviously Oscar Isaac's Steven / Marc Spector is Moon Knight, and he's going to continue being Moon Knight. So even with my theories of Marc maybe wanting to facilitate a life for Steven, and that is, you know, the debt he's going to repay. You chuck into that the obvious teasers from Arthur saying, oh, is that what he promised you? You're never going to be free. Oh, well, like, we're probably going to get an episode where it's revealed that he did what he stops it, but then Khonshu was like, no, you're still my Moon Knight. That will probably be a whole thing as well. But, you know, scrap all that aside. I wonder what the thing is going to be that keeps him as Moon Knight, because I doubt this is like a one and done. Like, you know, Moon Knight's going to echo probably throughout the MCU for some time. I wonder how it will get to the point of where Marc Spector or Steven is still the Avatar, because clearly Steven doesn't want to do this. Marc is only doing this to repay a debt. What carries the Moon Knight avatar of Oscar Isaac's character or performance on in the MCU after this? That's another question I find myself asking now. But either way, now Arthur Harrow has the Scarab. He's got to unearth Armmit's temple, and they are now in Egypt. A great end to the episode, and, you know, this is the end of my ramble, I guess. So, all in all, I still very much so thoroughly love this episode. A couple of, like, nitpicks here and there, but, you know, nothing major. So I would love to know what you guys thought down in the comments below. What do you think of this episode? What do you think of my theories? Do you believe in any of them? Do you have any additions that you can kind of twist, turn, and expand upon it with that I may have not thought about? But if you ended up enjoying this video, guys, I'd really appreciate a like. It really does go a long way, especially on the Marvel videos. Do subscribe if you're brand new here and you're enjoying these little rambly discussions. Do follow me on Twitter. I have an Instagram as well. I have a Discord server. All of that is linked down in the description. But thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow people of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the next video. Goodbye.